we're going to be looking at K-maps. These are all pre-drawn, and we have dots representing ones in here, and we just need to select the following equations that represent a result of our K-map. So when we're looking at K-maps, we can look at this 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, and then same thing for these columns. But I like to look at this and write it out where we have C naught, and then right here we have C, and then we have D naught, and then we have D, D, and D naught. And then we're going to have the same thing for these, where we have A naught, and then these we have A, and then for the middle part we have a B, and then for the sides we have B naught. So if we look at this, remember we can only look at if it's 2 to the n power, we can only combine that many things. And we can see that this is 2 to the second power, which will give us 4, so we can combine and look at all of these together. So in looking at all of these together, we can circle all of this. We are going to have it in our B row. Now we can't say it's in our A naught, in our A, because, well, this is in our A naught, yes, and this is in our A, yes, but we can't combine them because they're two separate things. So since they're both in B, we're going to be in the B row. Now, column-wise, we can't do it with the C or the C naught because, well, same reason we can't do it for the A and A naught. But we can look at our D and do it here. So we will have a B and then a D. And that is going to be the answer for this one. Let's look at another one. We have which of the following equations represents a result of the K-map below? Well, remember what I said about 2 to the n. When we look at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, this is 2 cubed. So again, we can combine all of these together. Now, let's look at the rows first. It's conventional to look at the rows first. When we look at this, we can see that it's in the A naught row for both of them. It's not in the B. The B has different signage for both. This one is B naught, and this one is B. So we can't use B or B naught. So we will have our A naught though. And then looking at our C and D columns, well, we can't write anything in here because they're all different. So our answer for this one is just going to be A naught. Now let's look at another one. So in this one, we have 6 dots. Now we know that we have to have 2 to the n things to combine. Well, 6 dots is not in 2 to the n, so we're going to have to break this up. Looking at this, well, we can combine these 4. And then, well, what else can we combine? Can we combine this and this? We can't. And the reason why we can't is because this 0, 1 is totally opposite from this 1, 0. So they're not really going to have a lot in common. What we can combine it with is with our 0, 0. So we're going to take this and combine it with this. And so let's start writing out our equation. And when we have two separate things, it's automatically an OR. And remember, an OR is equal to a plus sign when we write out this gray code. So let's deal with the blue part first. In the blue part, we're not going to look at our D because our D is different for both of these. But we will have a C naught because if we look at our C's, they're both zeros. Now let's actually look at the rows. I usually look at the rows first, so my bad on that. When we look at the rows, we can't look at the A's because the A's are different, but our B's are both 1. So we're going to have a B times C naught. Now let's look at the green. So for the green, we have a 0, 0, and 1, 0. That's for the column. Again, I'm doing the columns first. I usually do the row, but that's okay. It doesn't matter the order. We can't look at the C because the C is different for both. D is D naught for both, so we're going to have a D naught here. Now, looking at the rows, we can't use A again, but we can use B. And B is 1 for both, so we're going to have B here. And so our answer is going to be B C naught plus B D naught. And that's going to be the answer for this one. Let's look at another one. And for this one, we have 6 again. So remember, 2 to the n, we can't combine all of them. And even if we had 8, we couldn't combine all of them just based on how they're laid out. The first ones that I'm going to combine is this column right here. And then I'll look at these two right over here. And so for the column, well, we can see we're going to have a C naught and a D naught. And that's because, well, it's in the same thing for this whole time. Now, we can't use the A and B rows because there's 4 of them and it differs for all of them. Now, let's look at the green. So this is going to be ORed with, and then we have our C, that's the same here. Our D is different, so we're not going to use that, just the C. So we have a plus C. Now let's look at the row. Well, the row, it's only one row, so we're just going to include this entire row. We can see it's an A, and then it's a B naught. So we have an A, B naught. When we look at this, we can see that we have an A, B naught, C, ORed with C naught, D naught. And that is the answer for this one. One more, just to rein it all in. We have this kind of a box here. Now let's combine some things. Well, remember, we can only combine across or downwards. So we can't combine all of this together. But what we can do is combine all of this with all of this. Because this is 8, and 8 is 2 to the third, so that's okay. And then we can also combine all of this with all of this. Let's start off with the blue. We can see that we're going to have a D naught. We're not going to look at the C's because they're both different. And we can't look at the rows because, well, there's 4 different ones. Now let's look at our red. We're not going to be able to look at the columns because 4 different ones. But looking at our rows, we see that, well, we can't look at the A's because they're different. But we can look at the B's. It's both a naught, so we're going to have a plus B naught. And so our answer here is going to be B naught plus or ORed with D naught. And that's how you look at these K-maps.